Thank you, firstly, for joining us today for our Isla launch event, everyone. We are very, very excited to have you here and to be launching the Isla app. To start with, let's do some introductions. Firstly, I'm Natika, and this is Liz, and we are the co-founders of Isla Money. And yeah, thank you. we really appreciated that. So I'm going to start by giving you guys a little bit of an introduction to us, to Isla, what we stand for, and then we've got the really meaty bit, which is an amazing panel with three great panelists. So we have got some time for everyone to talk about money, wealth, and mindset all in one. So let's start with me and Liz. So Liz and I are actually friends from university, and this isn't actually our first project together. Our first project was actually organising our joint best friend's hen do, and we're very lucky to have her in the room with us. And since then, we have continued to grow our friendship. Between us, we have over 3 decades of experience in financial services, and it was here that we saw firsthand just how underserved women are when it comes to finances.
Giving away our age. It's not going yet.
And this is something that we saw and we became really passionate about. And the more we dug into it, the more we got really angry and passionate about making change. And we got passionate about this because we saw it not only in ourselves, not only in our friends. Coming from a low income background, I had to learn this all myself. We've both had to work on our finances. And even being in finance, we realized it wasn't very easy. And there's a lot of jargon that makes it really hard. And the industry doesn't work for women. So we started looking at this and we found more and more stats that annoyed us. And I will go into some of them because you know what? I want to get you guys riled up too. But let's start with what our mission is. So, because of this, our mission at Isla is to put a personal trainer for your finances in every woman's pocket so that they can deal with their finances with confidence and clarity. Because unfortunately, that just isn't the case at the moment. And so I'm going to take you through some of the stats to rile you up a little bit. We think the gender wealth gap is really important because if nothing is done, this is 7 generations. 7 generations. That looks like 2,200 is when the gender wealth gap is projected to close, which is absolutely ridiculous. And we don't think it's okay. And if we actually bring it back to today and what this means for people, what that actually looks like is that in the UK, less than 50% of women can pass a basic financial literacy test. And that's not their fault, is the main thing. I am not saying this to go, oh, all of you guys, what's going on? We're not doing well in our tests. We're not doing well in our tests because we haven't been taught this stuff. And it's been seen as something that women don't need to be doing as much. And we need to flip that narrative. That's not the case because that's just not how things need to be anymore. And so what that's led people to feel like is 72% of women haven't felt empowered to look after their finances at the moment, which is a huge, huge number. And because of that, they do not invest and lose out up to 800K over their careers. These are numbers that just don't work for us. And we don't want this to work for anyone. But we ask an honest question. Is this you? Is this you at the moment? And it's okay if it is, because it's also okay knowing that the current financial system has failed women for a long time. A great example of that is only 16% of financial advisors are currently women. There is actually more financial advisors who are male and over 60 than there is women financial advisors. So women haven't been given the financial literacy. Even if they want to turn for help, A lot of the times they don't have the wealth levels to get help. And if they do, they're not necessarily always being met with a relatable person, someone who understands them, who can speak to them in a way that makes them feel confident and comfortable to discuss their finances. And that needs to change, and it will. Together, we can all be a part of that change. And that's what we've created with Isla. So let Isla help you. And we can do this by helping you understand your situation, then helping you pivot everything about the life you want. So for us, it's not about having one less latte or one less avocado on toast, as we keep being told. It's about understanding what your dreams are and making this your why. It's knowing that these are what you're trying to reach. And then we also then give you the financial education and guidance to help you achieve those dreams. Because as we said, financial literacy is something that people need. We do this and then also give you the action plans to help keep you accountable to this in the app. And we also then couple this with an AI expert who you can speak to, who can also help keep you motivated, as well as a marketplace of humans who are there to help. Now, we recognize that money isn't just numbers. There is a lot of emotion. So our panel of experts and what we build into Isla isn't just the number side, it's the emotion side, which is why we also think financial coaches are really important, as well as the advisors, whether that's the investment advisors, mortgage brokers. All of this is in one app. So this is a little bit of an Isla plug. We would love for you all to try it if you haven't so far. Hopefully we've given you enough of a reason, but what we also want to do is make sure you guys are aware of some of these numbers, because this is what's wrong in the current system and what we need to change. We are just one cog trying to change it. There is a lot of other things, and we can all work together to do that. So with that, I am going to pass over to Liz, and she will... So yeah, so I will come back later, but we would love for you all to try Isla. We are a very early stage company, so all of your feedback on our app is hugely helpful. We would love to set up calls, get any feedback you have, because we want this app to work for you. We are making it with women in mind, so any feedback you have, we will take this in mind and try and implement it in the app. One of the key things, and the reason we have set up tonight, is also because, like I said, there is a lot of emotion around money. But one of the other things is women especially just don't talk about money enough. And this is the biggest issue. So we have an amazing panel who have very different views on money and can share their experiences. But then afterwards, what we want and what we've got lots of time for is for you guys all to mingle. We've got lots of games for you to start thinking about money in an easy way. You don't have to discuss numbers with anyone, but let's get everyone talking about money, because that's the first step. I have three amazing panelists joining me. Three amazing panelists joining me. You're going to have to see the back of our head for most of the time, Simone, so I apologize for that. As Nithika said, I'm the other co-founder of Isla. She's given such a great introduction that there's really not much I can say other than, 15 years in finance. I worked in life and pensions and realized just how rubbish we were at a long-time finance, because I literally had friends who had studied maths phoning me going, why should I contribute to my pension? And I was like, it's free money, take it. And then I worked in a private bank and I saw just how much advice and information the rich get, and found it even more fascinating that when there was a couple sat in front of the advisor, the conversation would go like this: man, 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 man. And then the man would usually, pass away because he was quite old. And then the banker would be like, but the woman left. She doesn't want to be with us anymore. And it was like, yeah, but you never spoke to her. So why would she want to be here? And so these are some of the experiences that I guess got us talking about this, and which is why we're here today. So we've heard a lot of stats on the wealth gap. I'm not going to bring up any more, but I would love to hear from both of you, or so both of you in the room and Simone behind us, what has drawn you to this problem, and introduce how you are contributing to closing the gender wealth gap, because that is exactly why we are all here today.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Ann Moore. My whole thing is about helping women to think differently about money so that they can build wealth. And I do that through so many things. Content, free content online, including a podcast. I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm so many things. And my whole thing, especially in the financial coaching space, is helping people to understand their relationship with money and the emotional side of money, and that I'm a big believer that your money mindset is the foundation to your financial success, and that when you can improve your relationship with money and understand how you think and you feel about money, then you can start to change your behaviors, and then we can bolster it up with all the practical stuff that you need to know. It's not one or the other, but it's really important that you understand and believe that you can change how you feel about money, even in the face of all the stuff that we as women have to deal with when it comes to society, the way that, the industry is, society's beliefs around us making money, earning money, going after money. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
All right. My name is Joy Foster, and I'm the founder of Tech Pixies. We help women who are sort of midlife between the ages of 40 and 60, all the way to women in their 30s and women in their 70s. We help them to return to work, change careers, start a business. So we do social media coaching, life coaching, business coaching. And money mindset is something huge that we talk about. And really, at the end of the day, what I'm doing is trying to help women become financially independent, because most women are not financially independent, particularly after they have a family. They are dependent usually on a spouse, and even if they're no longer in a relationship, they then become dependent on the government. And many women are still dependent on their parents. This baby boomer generation, there's a huge transfer of wealth that's about to happen between baby boomers and the next generation. But there's a lot of people in that generation, 40s to 60s, who are still relying on their parents and still getting help from their parents. I am one of them. My mother pays for my son's education. So, even in this day and age, it's a different time period. So, what we're doing at Tech Pixies is helping women gain confidence with tech skills, so social media skills, online business skills, but also through money mindset, life coaching, which is huge, because you can't outperform your self-image. So if you don't have a really clear vision as to where you want to go, and a really clear belief in your capacity to actually create that vision, you're going to have a really hard time creating it. And so that's what our job is to help you to see what your vision is, number one. And then number two, to start to take those steps, those action steps towards it, and start to believe that you can actually build the future that you want to build, despite all the situations, circumstances, and conditions that are stacked up against you. And we know that women for millennia have been doing unpaid labor. So it's in our genetics. We call it epigenetics. We don't have the gene, if you will, to make money, but we can change that. And that's what I do.
We can have the belief,
Yeah.
based on what both of you have said. Simone, would you?
You were gonna have to put like
I'm gonna do my best to make that work. If not, you might have me echoing what you're saying. So go ahead.
So I used to work in the financial services as a financial advisor, and the last role was working for a team of women-only financial advisors specializing in advising women. So that was always my background. I wrote a book for women about managing money economics, but of late, I say that of late, like in the last 23 years, I've been coaching people on their personal finances. So I've been helping empower women and in relationships to take better control and responsibility, and very much as well as the practical side, it's the emotional side of money. So what goes on beneath the surface. So I've been working in that way for the last 23 years, and I'm also now training others to do the same. And actually, we're bringing quite a lot of women into our community and training them to be coaches as well. So it's giving them a flexible way of working, and also they're learning more about their own relationship to money in the process.
Amazing. And by the way, guys, think of your questions because we are going to open the floor to questions at the end. Nithika mentioned a stat, which was essentially something like 72%. That is 7 out of 10 women. So if I look at this room and let's just do a quick estimate and say there's about 42 people in here, a nice number divisible. No, let's make it. She always laughs at me because she's the mathematician here. So that means that if we had 50 people in this room, many of you. Sorry, you can tell we have a great working relationship. But essentially, many of you would not be comfortable with your finances. I'd love to hear from the panel what the biggest blockers and challenges are that you see that women face when it comes to some of the confidence, some of the beliefs, but also then taking action, right? Because there is that belief piece, but then also the moving into a space of now I can do this. I'm going to start with you just to mix things up.
Yeah, so I'm 45 and I've been made redundant 3 times. So every corporate job I had ended in redundancy. So one of the big challenges that women have are career interruptions. And that can come from being made redundant. It can come from having children. It can come from getting breast cancer, bowel cancer, cervix cancer, any kind of cancer can interrupt that. You can also have a career interruption if your parents are elderly and you need to look after them. So last year I spent 3 weeks flying home to be with my mom as she was passing away from cancer. I have worked with women who they're living with the parent that they're taking care of and they've got that full-time responsibility. So, the biggest threat to female financial independence is all the unpaid labor that they provide into the world. And so I think it's really important to understand that career interruptions are going to happen and career progressions are going to be hindered. And every time you stop and start and stop and start your career, there's a pause in your pension payments. There's a pause in your ability to generate savings. So that's the number one threat, and I think is all the career interruptions. I have a podcast that's called Career Interrupted, which I interviewed you on, and it's phenomenal. The interruptions that women have faced, and the pandemic was a huge career interrupter for a lot of women, and it did not help the gender parity. We went back another like 99 years or something ridiculous like that. So I think that's the number one challenge is the fact that women have very squiggly careers. They have very real obligations to children and family. And even if they don't have their own children, they have people in their life that they're, godmothers, aunties, everything else too. And so that's really the big threat. And then I think barring that, once you do get yourself back into work, one of the challenges that we see is the confidence. So you take 2 years out of work, you're going to have a confidence gap. You take 22 years out of work and you're going to have a really big confidence gap. And that's really how we got started, was trying to close that confidence gap, helping women to realize just because I've been out of work for anywhere from 2 months to 22 years, that doesn't mean I don't have amazing skill sets to bring to the table. But what they do is when they go back to work, they take low paid, low skill jobs and they can't get themselves out of it because they get trapped in an admin job at a local school, paying less than the minimum wage. The cleaner in their house is getting paid more than they're getting paid. This is the cycle that they end up on. And then that further hurts the confidence. So yeah, life coaching helps a lot with that, and self-discovery helps a lot with that, but you've got to be willing to look inside. And that's, not a lot of women are ready for that yet, but I'd encourage you to start doing that. That's very important.
So for me, I work with a lot of younger women between sort of ages of like maybe 20 to 35. And what I see being one of the biggest challenges for young women is, first of all, this idea in society around what you're capable of and the gendered language of money and how women are spoken to in articles and online versus the way that men are spoken to. I find that a lot of financial education, or a lot of financial education up until now aimed at women, has been save the pennies, don't splurge, cut back on these little purchases, the avocado toast, the lattes, don't get your nails done. And we aren't spoken to in the way of build wealth, earn money, ask for a pay rise, go out and, build your own business. You can make your own money. And I think that that's a big one. We get told about the £3 questions, but a lot of the time men are being told to ask the £30,000 questions. So this idea, especially when I work with women and women in my community, is seeing people that look like them. I think that's why I love doing what I do, because I'm like, hey, I'm a young woman. I'm doing all of these things. But yeah, around the beliefs and the limits, this idea of like earning money being bad or dirty or like not for them, and being able to see people that look like them where they go, oh, hang on a sec, if they can do it, I could do it too. So yeah, this idea around building wealth, and it not budgeting is so important, but it not just all being about that, the investing side, the wealth building. And I was chatting with a few of the ladies here just a minute ago about this idea around, like when it comes to investing and the language used and feeling like you need to know everything until you get started. Whereas like men more often are like, let's go. Whereas women, it's like, oh, I should just do a little bit more research. So tying into what you said, this confidence piece of like, I know enough, I can get started. Yeah, that's what I would say I see.
And I'm sure you know this, but it's one of my pet peeves, which is the images that the industry use. So there's been research done, ladies, where essentially women are depicted holding a cup of coffee in a hoodie or a cup of tea or whatever, right? Sweatpants, we're all, and there's a piggy bank next to the cup of tea, etc. And the men are in their suits with glasses, which is supposedly a symbol for intelligence. Now, I really need them, right? But and then they're the ones looking at graphs and computers, right? This is the images. And we actually found something when the AI generating pictures just came out, and there was someone who asked the question of how would you depict money as a human? There was like 50 pictures, not one was a woman, right? So this is the messaging that we all get all the time. I'm conscious we also need to let Simone talk. So Simone, sorry, I interjected there. So off you go. I'm going to hold the mic.
Well, I agree with anything that's been said. I think the other thing we have to bear in mind is that we live longer. So we need to save more money. We need to build a bigger pot for our future because we're going to be living longer than men, right? But so all those things that we're not confident at taking action on things. We like tangible things. So investing in the stock market, investing in a fund which we don't fully understand, we can't see it, feel it. That's more alien to women. So I think it's really complex. The relationship to money, it's a topic we don't talk about very often. And certainly the investment side of it is something that we don't necessarily align ourselves with. So it's a lot also about your relationship to money, and I work with clients in helping them think about what money means to them and helping them reframe that thinking. But yeah, there's lots of ways that we need to change the way that we think and feel about it.
I love it. I think this whole point around money is not a number. It's actually something much deeper inside, is coming through really loud and clear. And it's a big reason why we also developed Isla the way we have. So we've really tried to put some of that mindset piece in it and also think about some of the behavioral science. And yeah, we'd love you guys to try it and give us feedback. Another stat that Nithika said was that about less than 50% of women pass a basic financial literacy test. To the panelists, and this time, Simone, I'm going to start with you. What is the role of education amongst all of the other things that are out there? And where do you talk, like, how do you talk to your clients about it? When do you introduce it? How, et cetera. I'm trying to get at that whole piece. So Simone, I'm going to come back and hold.
Yeah, so financial education, like without understanding how to manage money, let's start with that. First of all, we don't get taught any of this stuff at school. We don't, we learn maths and we learn very abstract things, but we could so easily be put into day-to-day practice. So starting with the basics of understanding how you can manage money, different ways, finding the way that works for you, the language that works for you. having pots set up in language that's speaking to you in terms of your goals and your vision, like building a camper van fund. So there's the kind of management of money, and then the understanding of how do you build it, how do you build wealth. Without understanding the different ways of doing that and really understanding risk, then we could shy away from it all, procrastinate. In the minute things become too difficult and it's too complex, it's very easy to just put it off. So the more that we can understand and educate ourselves about this, the better. But it's not just about education, right? It's not just about, we know what we need to do when it comes to food and health and all those things, but we don't always do the things we need to do. So it's education, but also alongside that, it's our mindset and understanding the behaviors that might be getting in the way of what's truly important to us. So it's working on both sides of those things, I think.
Wonderful. Laura, do you want to go?
So for me, and I really agree with what Simone just said, because from a coaching point of view, there's so much to do with the practical and the emotional. But in my opinion, knowledge is power. And when you know something or when you learn something, it kind of gives you that little taste for wanting to go, oh, maybe I'll learn a little bit more about that. Maybe, you let it settle. And I think that education, I know I'm biased because I'm literally a content creator, but the power of social media and people having access to people that look like them, that they can relate to, breaking down topics, financial topics that feel complex into a language that we understand is very important, because it allows you to go, oh, okay, maybe that's not as hard as it's made out. And I think in the world of finance, especially investing, the language is overcomplicated on purpose. It's like, I remember when I first started learning about investing, I would have an article up, and on the other side I would have like the dictionary or like Wikipedia up, and in one sentence I've like literally had to read up what 4 words means, and then I'm like trying to figure out, well, how does that make sense? So even just terminology breakdowns are so important. But also, knowledge is power when it's put into play, and having an understanding about your mindset and why I always say, why do people have good information but they make bad decisions? And it's like people that work in banks and in financing, they know this stuff, or you might know more of it, but why is it so hard to act on? And I think there's such a big relation between money and self-worth and your relationship with yourself. So learning how to change your behavior, how to change your self-concept. And with my content, I'm big on the practical and the emotional, and I teach it in a very sort of fun, relatable way. If anybody follows me on social media, I wear little wigs and I have little characters and I explain concepts in a way that, makes people laugh and entertains them so they feel at ease. But yeah, I think that financial education is really important, especially because personal finance is so personal. So you have to find a way of learning that works for you, and then knowledge that you can fit into your life. And I think that kickstarts the confidence piece to actually do something about it.
Well, I just was thinking about my daughter. She's 14 and she's doing the business course GCSE. It's like a second degree qualification. It's not the full GCSE, but she just had her first test, and it was on the broader concepts of finance. And now she's doing the personal finance side, and it's really interesting what she's going through. When I was her age, I wanted nothing to do with the business classes that were offered at school. And I think a lot of us might have felt that way. I ended up doing economics, but not because I wanted to. I had an economics professor as my advisor. And when I went in to tell him that I wanted to be a politician and I wanted to work internationally, he was like, okay, well, politicians don't know anything about economics, so you definitely need to take a class in economics. And I did a class in economics and I got an A plus, and I did a class in government, I got a C minus, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do economics. So that was important to me. But what I would say is that, yeah, it has to be entertaining. That's what I love about the social side of things, because it's only if you only watch it if it's entertaining, and there are some great things out there that you can watch. Um, Education is first and foremost, right? So whatever we want to do, build a business, get a job, education is first and foremost. You can learn anything. Marie Forleo wrote a book called Everything is Figureoutable, and I think that is just a great slogan that we should all adopt. Everything is figureoutable. But of course, it's not just learning something, it's taking action on it, right? And I always say inaction is the death of dreams. And I really believe that if you don't act on what you learn, you are sabotaging your future self. And we really want to spend time connecting with our future self and connect with her in a really cool place. So my future self is in the Maldives. She's got a straw hat on and she's wearing sunglasses. She looks really good. She's very fit. And she's got a white bikini on, and her husband's there, and the kids are grown up, and and I can hang out with her, and I like to sit with her in the infinity pool, and it's very clear in my mind, talking to future Joy, and I call her Straw Hat Joy, and she just keeps saying to me, it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. And so, but being able to tap into your future self and create a really beautiful vision of yourself as an older woman. It could be 5 years older, it could be 3 years older, it could be 10 years older, but just being able to connect with her. And I did some work today with an energy medicine healer person, and I went beyond my Maldive joy, Straw Hat Joy, and I was in Africa, and I was working on a project with Melinda Gates, and I'd been given a box from someone, and it was just really vivid, but it was 5 years on from this other dream. So spending time in your future self, connecting with her, tapping into your intuition, figuring out how your intuition speaks to you. So my intuition speaks to me through t-shirts. So if I ever have a question in my mind, I just look around for people with t-shirts and no one here's got a t-shirt on with words tonight, so I don't have a message coming to me. But I, and I look for stars. Obviously, if I see stars, and I was coming here, I saw stars. I thought, okay, I'm on my way to the right place. So just really, I know that sounds really out there, but I think it's really important that we have a vision of ourselves, and we are doing the things that we want to do in our vision, right? If we want to ski, we're skiing. If we want to go to the beach, we're at the beach. But I even have an action book with all sorts of pictures in it of me doing all the things that I want to do, and what it does is it turns on the reticular activating system in your brain, and then your brain starts looking for those opportunities, right? That's why, if you're trying to get pregnant, you see pregnant people everywhere. If you want thinking about getting a puppy, you see dogs everywhere. If you want to get a Tesla, all you see are Teslas. So that's a part of your brain that you can use to your advantage, and you should. So it's education, it's action, and then the third piece is dreaming. And many of us give up on dreaming, and I don't want you to give up on dreaming, because if you can dream it, you can create it, right? Then we educate ourselves, then we take action. You can get up to the top of Mount Everest by taking one step at a time. You can create your dream doing the same thing. So, those three pieces are really important. It starts with education, but you need the other two as well.
I love it. And you've brought me on so nicely to my next question, because one of the things that we find neurologically is actually that there is a disconnect in your brain to your future self, right? So one of the exercises that we often do is we say, imagine Nicole Kidman is standing next to you, right? Now we all know what she looks like, right? And now imagine Straw Hat yourself, right? So Straw Hat Joy or Straw Hat you in wherever you're going to be when you're retired. And then take a moment to just think about your current self. Two parts of your brain lit up, right? The part for Nicole Kidman and your future self was the same part of your brain, and it is a different part of the brain than you thinking about you right now. So there is a neurological disconnect between you now and you future. So when you talk to people about saving for the future, you could essentially be saying to them, save for Nicole Kidman. That's what it feels like for our brain, right? So that's why it's also so hard. And so I want to move on to that whole medium and long-term goal piece and ask you ladies, how can we get more women to get comfortable investing so that 800,000 number that Nithika showed isn't 800,000 K for women anymore?
Well, I mean, so I work with a lot of women who've taken career breaks, and they've got these big, huge gaps. I mean, myself included. For me, when I looked at the landscape and what was on offer in tech, there were only full-time jobs, and I have two kids. They're now 12 or 13 and 14, but when I was sort of looking for jobs, they were 2 and 3. And I couldn't find a job that would give me the flexibility and the pay and everything else. And I thought, well, if I build my own company, I will be able to be my own boss. And I mean, I kept getting made redundant, and I just got tired of never feeling secure in my own job. So my choice personally was I'll build a business because I have more financial security building my own business. And whether or not that's true, I don't know. Well, time will tell. But I certainly have learned a lot, and I certainly feel like if everything burnt down today, I could rebuild, and that's a skill that I wouldn't have gained, I don't think, had I stayed in the career that I was in. So, for me, I think the way we close this gap, if in my this is again, we all have different viewpoints. My viewpoint is teaching women to become entrepreneurs, because if you've ever had a bullying boss, if you've ever been gaslit, if any of those things have happened to you, if you create your own business, you create your own environment. I have a beautiful group of employees who've worked for me for six years. I've been in business for 10, but I've got most of my staff have worked for me for 6 years, and we're very close. We've built this business together, and I've created an environment that is, happy and healthy for them, happy and healthy for me. So I do think education about entrepreneurship is important, and I think women should be building businesses. It's a harder road than it is for men. There's lots of evidence of that, but I do think wealth building wise, it's one of the ways that women can close that gap.
I think for me, and I agree with a lot of what you say around like entrepreneurship. I also feel like when it comes to investing, when I learned about investing, it was about 5 years ago, maybe. And I was on a date with a guy. And at the time, I had about £20,000 sat in a bank account that I'd saved. I was a big saver when I was younger. And I was like, yeah, well, I've got this money in this bank account. And we were talking about money. I wasn't boasting, it was part of the conversation. And he was like, whoa, you're literally losing money. And I was like, it was the first time I listened on the day. I was like, what do you mean? Tell me more. I was like, oh my God, you're saying something interesting. And he was my first sort of intro into investing. And I was like, okay. So I went out and I did a little bit of research, completely overwhelmed by everything I saw online. But I did a bit of research. I reached out to a couple of people. There was a really lovely guy that I met at a party once, and he was like, I'm a financial advisor. I think it's awful how, few women are investing. Let's go for a beer. I'll tell you everything I know. So we did. We sat down and I just grilled him. I was like, what's an index fund? What's compound interest? What's this? And he explained everything to me. And when I walked away from that, I was like, oh, this feels easier than it's made out to be. That's when I went on my journey of sharing my own story and helping other women to get started. And I have, I teach women how to get started in the stock market. And the biggest thing I see around that is not dumbing it down and making women feel like they need a different version of investing, more just taking a different approach of the education. They still want to see the numbers. Like when I share posts around compound interest and investing, women are like, I want to know about this. And I think that it can be very frustrating when you see different financial services companies online that are old and traditional and they talk to women differently. And it's like, we're all we're intelligent, we have the capacity. So I think that for me, helping women to get started investing is understanding their own power, how they don't need to give that away to a partner or someone in their life. And I think when I say to women, do you know anybody who's investing? It's always a dad, a brother, an uncle, a guy mate at work. And when they ask them questions, they feel like they're being mansplained to, and it turns them off. They're like, I feel like I can't ask any more questions about this. So I think for me, for women, part of what I'm doing and, a bunch of other amazing women that you guys are doing is making it like, hey, it's a safe space. There are no stupid questions. You can ask the same question a million times if you want. I don't mind answering it again and again until you understand. So, yeah, I think breaking it down and doing it in a way where it's like, you deserve to know this information. This is a space for you, but also helping you to understand the impact that it has. And I'm super big on the closing the gap between your future self and your current self. And I think that combination really helps. I hope.
Absolutely. Simone, what?
Yeah, I love all that's been said. I think the understanding the risk of not in bed or holding money in cash. So part of it is that as women, we're quite often risk averse. But actually, when you understand that if all you do is hold money in cash, that's actually more risky because it's not protecting you against inflation. And that's something quite difficult to get your head around. But once you get your head around that, you realize actually you've got to take risk in the stock market in order to get returns ahead of inflation. So, but it's also about breaking it down into, it doesn't have to be massive amounts. It doesn't, just starting with very small amounts. There are some apps where you can save, but you can invest money on a regular basis weekly, and you can do little payday bonuses. And so you can just build up that money very slowly. Start building the confidence, start seeing that just going for a global index tracker fund, just something very simple, could generate good returns for you and would also help you build the confidence. So just starting small, don't worry about it being too much. Play a little bit. I've got a client that's playing with buying shares with very small amounts of money, but it's just helping her understand the ups and downs of the stock market. It's not something she's doing actually more from an education perspective. She's also got some money invested in funds, but just for her to understand what happens, like on a day-to-day basis, what's happening with this fund. And understanding dividends and understanding. So just starting very small and building your confidence from there and talking about it. I think that's the other thing, is that this is a taboo topic and we don't talk about it. And there's so much we can learn from each other. So sharing this with friends, getting together and exploring the ways that you can invest money, doing that collectively, that can also support you to have the confidence to take action for yourself.
Incredible. So start small, make sure you try. These are all amazing things. What advice would you give your younger self? And the reason I say that is, yes, we've spent a lot of time connecting with the future. And I think it is super important to think about the future, but there is this moment of sort of looking back and saying, what would I do differently? And what advice can I give the women in this room? So, Simone, I'll,
So you talk about advice I would give to myself,
to
my life experiences.
exactly when it comes to money.
Yeah, I think for me, I tried to be too clever, though I took risks actually with money in a way that I would never have advised my clients. So I did things that I massively regretted later in life. So it's my advice to myself would be keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. Just do regular investing. Don't try and play the market. Don't try and be too clever. Don't try and take. I did something that I thought I could generate much better. I pulled out of I transferred out of a final salary pension scheme and transferred it into a private pension because I thought I could do a lot better, and it would have been much better just to keep it where it was. So don't play around too much. Don't try and be too clever, and just stay in the market. Don't try and keep consistently into the market, and don't be too clever.
I love it. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't be too clever. Joy, do you want to go next?
So my advice, I was thinking about this today on my dog walk. I was sort of prepping for this and thinking, what am I going to talk about? And I had a lot of terrible answers. And then I came up with this one, which I think is a really important thing to say. And then as you were asking the question, another thought popped in my head. So the first thing is, if you are going to become an entrepreneur, right? So I believe that entrepreneurship is one of the greatest tools of wealth creation. So if you are going to become an entrepreneur, I would make sure that you have insurance in place. So key person insurance. So if something happens to you, the company gets money and they can replace you, right? So you've got to sort of think about, well, what happened to me? What if something happens to me? And also have life insurance. And because pretty much if you are going to be an entrepreneur, chances are you're going to put everything you own into your business, and with the hope of a future return, which means your savings and everything else. So making sure you've got life insurance that is for yourself if you pass away, or your partner if they pass away. One of my very best friends died last November, so she's been gone 14 months, and I was excited to come to London because I could spend time with my goddaughters who are 9 and 12. She didn't have life insurance. And so if you are going to go down the path of being an entrepreneur, make sure you've got life insurance in place. We've also got mortgage insurance. The amount of insurance we have is actually quite shocking. But if something happened to me, the mortgage would be paid off. My husband wouldn't have to worry about it. The school fees would be covered. My husband wouldn't have to worry about it. And women do not think about insurance. And the only reason I know about it is because I sold it. That was one of my very first jobs, was selling insurance. And the story that I used to tell people was there was this couple, and it was a true story. Couple, they'd just gotten married. She was pregnant, and her husband went out for a motorcycle ride and was killed on the motorcycle ride. And she was pregnant, and he had a business, and so she inherited the business and then had this baby. And they were very fortunate because about 6 months before their wedding, they had sorted out all of the insurance paperwork, and they both had insurance. And when he died, she was financially okay because of that. And that's the story we used to tell people to scare them into buying insurance. But it worked, and I think it worked on me, and I've had insurance since I was 23 years old. And the earlier you get it, the better, yeah, the cheaper it is, the better rates you can get. So that's my first piece of advice. Now, my second piece of advice, and I didn't know this because I'm 45 and I only found out 2 years ago that I have ADHD, and a lot of women have ADHD. A huge percentage of the population, they call it the lost generation, don't know they have ADHD, and then they get perimenopausal, and then it goes absolutely crazy, and then they're like, what is really wrong with me? And they find out they've got ADHD. Now, ADHD massively impacts your ability to generate wealth, to create financial security, partly because your prefrontal cortex doesn't function correctly. So I had a brain scan, I got on a treatment plan, and I'm 20 years ago, if that had been available to me, which it wasn't, it would have changed the trajectory of my life. So if you think you might have ADHD, and there's lots of lovely videos online that'll tell you that you might have it, if you think you have it, go find out, because it will very much hurt your financial prospects if you don't know that you have ADHD. So I like the ADHD at the addtypetest.com. It's a great little online test, and it'll give you some advice as to what to do. And there's a great book called Healing ADD, and it talks about what happens when there's undiagnosed ADD, ADHD. So those are my two pieces of advice. If you're going to go down the entrepreneurial path, even if you're just going to go down the career path, make sure you've got insurance. It just makes sure that everybody you love are taken care of in case anything happens to you. And then then that peace of mind is there, and you can do the other things you want to do. And then find out if you got ADHD, because if you do, it might be hindering your ability to build that wealth that you would love to build.
I love that. That's making me want to go and get insurance more than I already do. I don't have enough in place. So my advice to my younger self in regards to money would be to trust myself more. From the age of sort of 15, 16, I grew up in a family that didn't have loads of money, and I became a total hoarder with money. I'd saved about 15K by the time I was 22. Had great benefits, because I ended up going traveling and spending it all, and I got a really amazing positive experience. And that's actually what kind of pushed me into this career, was like, money's so cool. I want everyone to experience the options that it gives you. But the trusting myself piece would be, I worked in a corporate job for about 9 years, and I ran my business now as a side hustle on the side for about 2.5 years. I was making money, but I was so scared to do what I knew would work. And I think I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I was so scared of it. And I think there is a balance of knowing when is the right time. And I really pushed it. Luckily, I had an amazing boss who was so supportive and kind of slowly helped me ramp out of the company. And he was like, you can do it. So yeah, trusting myself to be a business owner. And then also when it came to investing, I learned about it. And it probably took me a year from the first kind of learning catalyst to investing my first pound. Now, yes, that year was really important for me because I learned loads, but I definitely could have done it sooner. I just needed to jump in and start small. So yeah, it would be to trust myself more.
We've covered so much, but I want to turn over to you ladies. Have you got any questions to either all or any of our panelists?
We've got one mic in front.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for your wonderful, wonderful advice and what you have to say. It's been a great evening. We were talking last week about how do you break the money taboo, and And my challenge to you is, given that we've been able to break the taboo about checking yourself for breast cancer and, God, even incontinence as a perimenopausal or postpartum woman, if we can talk about things like that, how the hell can we make money something that we can talk about more easily?
Good luck. Well, in the UK, as we know, there is a huge taboo and shame around money and debt, and it keeps us quiet, it keeps us, separate, and it can be very isolating. My experience when I saved that 15 grand, I didn't tell anyone. It was a secret. And then I went traveling, and my best friends, after 8 months of traveling without having a job, my friends were like, "How much did you actually have saved?" And I was like, £15,000. And I felt ashamed by it, right? But as I started to enter this world of financial education, I've had it firsthand where I think vulnerability is the most important thing. Finding people that you trust and that you feel confident around, a partner, a best friend, or a community online, and being able to be the person who says, I'm going to share my story or I'm going to share something. I think vulnerability is such a beautiful way to share and communicate and connect with people. And I've seen it in my friendship groups where when I started talking about money, me and all the girlies were like, "Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel confident to say, sorry, I can't afford this right now. Can we do something cheaper?" Or, "Oh, I'm struggling a little bit. Can I have some help?" But also, we would sit and write emails together to one person's boss to ask for a pay rise. And we would do it together. So I'm like, hey, this is my words. I'm asking your boss for you to get a pay rise. So I think being able to share, especially as a female, with your friends on that stuff and being vulnerable, I think is one of the best ways that we can get over the taboo around money.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I talk a lot about something called partners in believing. So being with people who believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself. The opposite of a partner believing, a sacred friend. It's also a scared friend. So you tell them you want to start a business, and they're like, "Ooh, that's scary. Don't do that." And that's their own limitation, right? It's their, I was on a call earlier today, last night, and someone was saying, I told my mom about my business idea, and everyone's like, "No, don't do that. Don't tell your mom about your business idea because your mom's going to worry about you more than anybody else." And so, yeah, don't talk business with your mom, which is sad because actually it'd be nice if you could talk business with your mom and she wouldn't get worried about you. But I think so for me, I have partners in believing, women who have helped me build my business, who I talk to on a regular basis, and we openly share wins. So if we land a deal, 20K, I'll message this friend of mine and say, "Hey, you just landed this corporate deal, 20K. I'm super thrilled," and she'll write back, "That's super great." So having someone that you can talk about and without the shame. Um, I come from I call it recovering evangelical background, right? So evangelical Christians there's a big, taboo around money, money is evil, etc. And so I had to really rewire my brain to see the good that money brings and to say that if I make more money, I can do more good. And so a lot of it was around really priming my brain. So I teach something called brain priming, where you have to rewire the thought like money is evil. You have to rewire that to more money means more good, and then here's examples of people, Oprah, for example, or several other women that you can think of that are doing amazing things in the world, and just giving your brain examples of where money is good and believing that. But I think it is true to have people that you can talk about it with that will celebrate you and who you celebrate, and really leaning into the positive side of it, right? So the more money I have, the more good I can do, and really truly in your core believing that, I think is really important. Simone?
Yeah, I think it's interesting is we can talk with sensitivity with our friends about relationships, about health, about very intimate things, our sex lives, all those things, but we don't always talk about money. And it is just, as you say, kind of exploring what's getting in the way for you. What are the feelings that you have attached to it? Shame, guilt, fear. What's holding back from sharing? if it's a situation of debt, it's always good to talk about it, share your situation with somebody, gain some support in helping you, hold you to account on action and things like that. But it's about kind of finding your tribe, finding people that you can trust to talk to in this way, building some kind of accountability partnership with a trusted friend, a partner, or an external. Like sometimes when you work with a coach, for instance, that sharing with one other person in a very safe space gives you permission to be able to do that with other people. So it depends what's specifically what you want to be talking about, whether it's about investing or whether it's about money behaviors or spending behaviors, things like that. It's worth looking at what's getting in the way and then who might be the right people to share that vulnerability with.
I love all that. And if I may, I'd actually also say one more thing. How many people are in this room are mothers? How many are siblings? That's pretty much 95. How many still have their parents? It can start with family, and it doesn't have to, like, if we normalize it in the family, we then also start to normalize it outside of the family, outside with friends. And the other thing is, it doesn't have to start with numbers. It doesn't have to be the I've saved 15,000 or my salary is or whatever. It can start with, hey, I'm actually just feeling a bit vulnerable about this at the moment. Can we talk about that? Or I need someone to big me up and just be really proud of the fact that I've achieved XYZ. Yes. Find the right person in the same way that you look for career advice from certain people, you can look for money advice with others. I'm really conscious of time. I think we've got quite a few questions still in the room. I'm going to take two more. And then the panelists will be available. Simone, maybe we can pass your LinkedIn details and then people can get in touch that way. I think that's probably easiest. But that way, then we've got. Yeah.
Sorry, this might be a bit of a long one. But this has all got me really thinking because I'm an adopted child, but my dad is taking care of raising me for the last 10 plus years. So I apologize if I get a bit emotional in advance. But I think, like, I don't know, obviously there's generational differentiations, but I think as a female being raised by a man that was also from India, there's a lot of cultural responsibilities behind, being the homemaker, being the caretaker. How would you also advise, because I'm only 21, I have no experience really when it comes to as much as you do and knowledge and finances. How do we not fall into the trends of growing up being told to take care of others and entering in relationships where we become financially responsible because we're told that you have to break the glass ceiling, you have to become the breadwinner, you have to do all these things? I don't know if that's a bit of a tough one, but it just occurred to me a lot. Who wants to go first?
As you can tell, I have a lot of privilege, right? I'm white and I'm blonde and blue-eyed, and I've got, I went to private school and I grew up in a privileged house. So I don't have personal experience, but I have coached a lot of women in your position. And what I will say, in fact, I was just talking to one of the women that I coached today. She comes from an Asian background, and she is the first woman, this is through our training program, but she's the first woman in her family to break the mold and leave the house and get a job. Every other woman in her family stays at home, does all the home stuff, and that was a huge deal for her, to be able to go out of the house. And her husband put in a stipulation that because she wanted her daughter to go to school so she could build a business, and her husband said, "Well, you have to pay for the daughter to go to school. I'm not going to pay for it." So she's now gone out to get a job. That's how she ended up getting a job, to then pay for her daughter to go to school so that she could then do what she wanted to do. And she's now working in cybersecurity in a male-dominated office and is dealing with the cultural challenges as well. So not only is she female, but she's also culturally different than all of the other men in the office. And it's been really hard. It's been really hard for her. But what I believe in, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, regardless of your sexual orientation, that if you can get a really clear vision for your life and what you want to do and what you want to create, that if you can stay focused on that, even when everything around you doesn't feel like it's going to happen that way, that's the starting point. And then we start to lean into this idea that I am more powerful than any situation, circumstance, or condition, and I can handle every situation that comes my way. Most people walk around, and many of us in this room will have felt this at some point in our life, maybe feel it right now. Most people walk around feeling like a victim, right? This has happened to me, and that happened to me, and that happened to me, and it's all happening to me. Why is it all happening to me? Terrible question to ask. So when things are happening to you, you're powerless. But when you realize that you can co-create your experience in this world, you can create the experience that you want to create, then you have power. So don't ever give that power away. Really, really, really believe I've got the power to change, and that there is an answer to every question that I have. There is a solution to every problem. And if you can start to believe that with all your being, there's going to be opportunities that come up, and you can take those opportunities and you'll find your own way. But having a clear vision at the starting point of that, what would I love, is the first question you ask yourself. What would I love 3 years from now? It's January 2028. What would I love to be happening in my life? And stay focused on that every single day. And just know that you're not a victim. You're a co-creator, and you can create the reality that you want to create.
That was beautiful. I actually only have a little bit to add on top of that, is to whilst you have your vision and you find that belief in yourself that it can be different for me, maybe there's people, communities that you can turn to that have done this before you, that you can lean on, you can get mentors, you can get support, but to look after yourself through the process, and to whatever that dream, whatever that vision is that you have, that yes, you hold it strong in your mind and you align your actions with it, but through that process you are taking care of yourself, the self-care side, the well-being, because breaking generational curses and taking a new path and even building wealth can be hard and tiring when if you feel like you're doing it on your own. And money is only important to all of us when we have our health as well. So really looking after your health and your mental health along the way, like, what do I need on this journey that's not just money? What else do I need? That's what I would add.
Perfect. I'm going to ask for the final question to be directed at Simone.
Thank you so much. This evening has been amazing. Even though I was late, trains. But just kind of want to come at a slightly different perspective. I have a really dear friend. He's a man. He's in his 30s. He's just entered the financial industry. He would call himself a feminist. However, if he heard any of the statistics you've talked about tonight, he would be horrified. So how can we build allyship with men in the industry who kind of can help change the dynamic? We've got this happening in so many other areas of life. How can we do that in the financial sector to kind of change the narrative from their side as well as from our side?
Okay, so the question is, how can we build allyship with men who are in the financial services industry, who consider themselves feminist, but who would be horrified by some of the stats that you saw earlier and the wealth gap, 7 generations, 800K, etc. So how can we build? Yes, professionals.
Yeah, I think it's very much about giving them the opportunity to, I think they're not always necessarily very good at listening to the truth behind how we feel about money. So having ensuring that you're creating the space for that. I'm not sure I quite got the question fully, so feel free to.
No, I think that's so perhaps making them aware that they need to listen more is what Simone is saying. Sorry, I mean, I'd say that about other things, not just money. Sorry, didn't say that. Who would like to go next?
I'd say good luck with that. Yeah, it's not always a male strong point, listening. I think showing them the stats. right? Like, the problem I have, and I love my husband very much, but the problem whenever I show him stats, he'll be like, he'll want to make sure that the study is credible, and he went to Oxford, so you can't get much past him. But I think showing them the stats is really important, and I think that's number one. And number two, just identifying who are allies already within an organization. Because within an organization, there's going to be a percentage of men who are supportive, and so you want to find those men and connect with them, because they're already actively working in that space. Dame Helena Morrissey, when she set up the 30% club, which was to get 30% of women on boards, she tried to do it without men, didn't get very far. And then she sought out really powerful men who agreed with her and got them involved, and the game changed. So I do think it's important that we involve men and we do find allies. But I think you do have to measure up who you're talking to, whether or not they've got the clout to be involved, whether or not they care enough to be involved. I think men with daughters are more receptive to it because it affects their children even more. So the other thing too, just to throw out there, a lot of 55-year-old white men are quite disillusioned right now, as are 20-year-old white men. And not that we should feel sorry for them. Don't feel sorry for them. But they are going through their own transition right now because they're seeing their jobs as threatened. And you look at what's happened in the U.S. All the DEI people have just been put on for just been told not to come back to work. I mean, it's horrifying. So I think you've got to observe the men around you, see who the allies are, and start creating those strategic partnerships and getting them involved in any initiatives that you're doing. I let my first male investor into my business in the last year. It's been an experience. And but he's got a different mindset than my female investors. So it's been an interesting journey, but he's definitely an advocate for what we're doing. And I was open to trying something new. So there you go.
The only thing I would add to that, on top of, and I agree with everything that's been said, but is also finding the balance for yourself of how much energy you put into converting men versus helping women. I think like finding the right people, being like who's got the clout, who can we try and convert, without it being like your life's mission, because it's that balance of like, yes, if we get more men on board, that will help, but then also we just as women have that power. The more women we get on board, we'll just stampede them. That's the plan.
And on those words, I'm going to end this. Thank you so much to our amazing panel. Thank you to all of you for coming. Yes.